So I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be doing for the rest of the day. I also, just sort of following on from that last conversation, the basis of what we've done in the PAR work so far has really been about trying to define a set of concepts, a conceptual model for describing the kinds of things you need to do in digital preservation. And really what we want to do is today mostly is test out that model, is to actually understand if these concepts actually make sense to describe the kinds of preservation actions that you're doing at your institutions, and if they can be used to create these good practices. We can't really get to registries until we have the content to put in the registries, and that content requires having a shared way of describing the things we're talking about. So I'll go over quickly what the plan for the afternoon, which is we're planning to break into groups, and we're using this methodology that we described in the iPres paper, which is see one, do one, teach one. So we're going to go over some examples, show you some specific preservation actions and business rules and other that have been already written down, and then we're going to, in the groups, try to work on writing out new examples. And we'll specifically focus on two of the entities, these business rule and preservation action. I think there's other areas I will show the full diagram here, so it doesn't just have to be those two things, but those are the main focus. And then in the last sector, the teach one, the idea is in a one-on-one way, we want everyone to pair up with someone who is in another group and actually explain to the person in that group what your group did, and listen to their explanation of what their group did. And we're hoping by going through this, using this technique, that I guess two basic outcomes. One, that each of you goes away from this having a much fuller understanding of this conceptual model, and actually you've learned something today, but also that the PAR project gets feedback about whether these concepts, this model is useful for each of you, or in what ways it could potentially be improved, or what's strong about it and what needs to be improved, basically. So here we have a picture we showed earlier. This is taken out of the iPres paper. There are 10 different entities described in this model. I'm going to focus on just the two I mentioned before, the business rule and the preservation action, and I'm going to describe them in a little bit of detail so that this afternoon we can go through and sort of try creating examples of those. So these other entities really in the model are about supporting those two concepts. So business rules and preservation actions. These are all of the properties that we defined when we wrote out this conceptual model. We've gone as far as developing JSON schema descriptions that have these more formalized. The ones in bold here are the things in the JSON schema that are required elements. And in some cases, as we'll go through here, you'll see gets into quite a bit of detail. So starting with business rules. So a business rule the purpose of a business rule is to explain why particular preservation actions are being performed in particular contexts. And the most important fields in this are probably the description and the notes. So the idea that you can actually just explain in human readable narrative text the purpose for doing a particular actions. And when you see some of the examples, hopefully this will make a little bit more sense, but it also allows you to specifically say, I have many preservation actions available, but which one is the one I prefer to use first, or which one is I consider best. And you can also say, my preservation actions work many different ways, but in order to satisfy my business needs, I have very specific inputs, or I expect specific outputs from the preservation actions. So going into a little more detail, these are all of the different properties that you can write out when you create a business rule. And as I mentioned, the description and the notes are probably in some ways the most important places to start. This is where you actually write out what the business rule is for, what the purpose of it. And when we talk about preservation action types, the idea of a preservation action type is sort of directly connected to the idea of preservation event types as described in the Library of Congress controlled vocabulary. It's used within the premise data dictionary as well. And so this is the the sort of the category, the classification of the preservation actions. And so while you don't have to specifically use any a particular controlled vocabulary here, we've sort of focused on our examples that tie from this Library of Congress preservation event types. And then after that, you can also say this business rule applies to particular sort of families of formats. Now, again, we don't necessarily have a specific controlled vocabulary for this that we're saying to use. That's part of the discussion this afternoon, is thinking about that. There are examples of ontologies that have been developed that try to describe format families. The Nepomuk file ontology has one. The PCDM did this. Other ontologies have kind of worked on that concept. We also have, the idea of specific formats. It may be that you write a business rule that applies just to one particular format for whatever reason. And then we have the idea within the business rule that you tie it to specific preservation actions. So of course, the next entity I'll describe will make this a little bit clearer. But when you have you can have one or more preservation actions that are related to this business rule. And you would put them in a list, essentially, say, here's all my preservation actions. And for each preservation action, you can define these properties. So you might say, what are the inputs that are needed for this preservation action to work to fulfill this business rule? What are the outputs I expect from the preservation action? And what's the priority of this preservation action in relation to other ones? As an example of a priority, you may have preservation actions that describe how to use more than one tool for format identification. So that's an example we have later. So you have Siegfried and Droid and Fido. All three tools can produce format identification. You may use a business rule to describe which tool you prefer to use. In our organization, we prefer to use Droid, and if Droid for some reason doesn't work, we may then use Fido. So you could describe two preservation actions and give a priority to one tool and the second priority to the other tool. Okay, so now I'm going to describe quickly about preservation actions. So a preservation action is as we defined it in the paper, it was the processes that are run as part of performing digital preservation. So this is really where you connect the purpose for the preservation action, which is the preservation action type, to the tool that you're using to execute this preservation action, to the inputs and outputs. So to give a little more detail, when writing out a preservation action, you can have a description, you have a type, which is the preservation event type, and then you connect it to a tool. We have other entities in the model that describe what a tool is. And one area that we could, in our groups this afternoon work through is some of the examples of where we've described the OPF tools and in detail exactly how those tools work. And that alone is potentially a useful place to take PAR, is to actually have a way to describe all the different all the different tools that are available in digital preservation. And then, beyond these elements, you can then get into describing your preservation actions in a little bit more technical detail. So we have the concept of constraints, which really says there's three properties we described, which is allowed formats, allowed properties any of, and allowed properties all of. And that allows you to actually decide, so this preservation action only works with specific files in specific formats. Or as Paul mentioned, sometimes it's more useful to describe preservation actions related to some form of intellectual entity rather than to a particular file. So you may say that this preservation action applies when this is a research data set, or when it is a book, or when it is content that came from a particular department within your institution, any potential property that you might want to define for when this preservation action should be applied. And then the inputs and outputs are basically what's expected or required in order for the tool to be executed correctly. And so you can have, the inputs can be, you expect to pass in a file. We have examples where, so one example is, this is the file that I'm actually performing the preservation action on. So a file that I want to validate a checksum for a file, so I have to actually, an input is the file I'm going to validate the checksum for. But a second input could be a property, which could be the checksum itself. So this is the checksum I want to validate. You could also depending on the tool you're using, some tools have, so for example, when you go to check checksum, some tools expect you to pass in those checksums in a manifest. So you actually, the input is another file. The input is not just the checksum property. So you could define your preservation action where it has actually two input files. One is the content to check, and the other one is a manifest of checksums. And then for outputs, we kind of recognize that sometimes a preservation action generates a new file, so you actually generate a derivative of some kind. Sometimes it creates, the output is properties, so if, like when you're doing metadata extraction, you get back specific properties. And sometimes what you get back is sort of what we call raw, which is effectively whatever the tool output happens to be. So the tool may, we will talk about the example of media info when you're doing metadata extraction on audiovisual content. It may give you back an XML file. And so we would describe that as raw because it's not specific individual properties. You could extract properties from that, but the tool output is actually a blob, essentially. So I've gone through those two basic concepts. The expectation is this afternoon we'll have these definitions available for you to refer to, but the idea is that we will go through and show you some examples of specific preservation actions and business rules we've already written in the past, and then we'll work together to try to define some new ones.